I never imagined that one phone call would change everything. My fiancé forgot to hang up, and I accidentally overheard a conversation that completely shattered my view of him. What I heard his family say broke my heart into pieces. It happened just days before our wedding, and after that, I couldn't look at him the same way. The wedding I had been looking forward to suddenly turned into an absolute nightmare. I, 25 female, was supposed to get married last week, but it didn't happen because I ran away the night before my wedding. I was engaged to my boyfriend, 27 male, for 6 months, and we've been in a relationship for 4 years. My now ex-boyfriend and I have 2 kids together as well, twin boys aged 1. We didn't plan to have them, and my boyfriend was very against me having our kids in the first place. But I was very stubborn and I told him that I'd be having them with or without him. I'd given him the option to leave, and I didn't even demand child support from him. I believe that I'm capable of raising my babies on my own, no matter what, but I'd always had a very strong maternal instinct, and for me, the timing just felt right. I was ready to be a mom, but he needed some time to come around. That's what he told me when I said that I was going to break up with him if he kept trying to push me into not having the baby. Only then did he seem to come around. He'd been a good partner throughout the pregnancy and a good father after their birth. We hadn't expected twins, and I'll admit I might not have been able to manage that by myself, so I think I was lucky that he stuck by. After my sons were born, he'd done everything that a father does, and 6 months later he proposed to me, and I said yes. It was as if that whole episode where he demanded that I get rid of the babies never happened in the first place. He was that good. I think pregnancy had made me soften up as well, so all was forgiven, and I was ready to marry him. After all, we'd already been together for 3 years in a pregnancy, so I believed that this was the right time. For months, we planned, and I was really happy. My parents were also thrilled because they also liked my ex a lot. He was just the perfect guy. But then, one night before the wedding, it was all ruined. I still can't believe that one phone call ruined a 3-year relationship, but I guess it saved me from entering what was bound to be an awful marriage. The day before our wedding, my ex and I were staying in separate places, as is customary. I was living in our house while he'd moved to his family's place, which was just a couple of blocks away. After dinner, he called me to remind me that he loved me and that he couldn't wait to marry me, and that got me really emotional. We had a moment while we were on call, and then we said our goodbyes, and I waited for him to hang up. Fortunately, or unfortunately, he forgot to hang up. I think he must have not clicked the screen hard enough, which is a common habit of his. I stayed on the line as well, because I'd heard his father speak to him, and just out of curiosity, I decided to eavesdrop on their conversation, because his dad had just asked my ex if he was talking to me. While saying yes to his dad, my ex sounded really dejected and distant, and I could sense that something was off. The conversation that happened next still plays in my head on a loop, even though a whole week has passed. His dad then asked him if he still felt the same way as he did 2 days ago, and he said yes. Then his mother joined the conversation as well and told him that no matter how he felt, he needed to go through with the wedding. My boyfriend seemed to flare up a little and told them that he would do whatever he wanted to, and they couldn't push him around like this, to which his dad replied, saying that they couldn't force him to marry someone he didn't love, but they could cut him out of their will. So the choice was his. His mother then proceeded to lecture him about how now that he was a father, he needed to grow up and be responsible. It was bad enough that he'd had kids before marriage, but he could still save the situation by getting married instead of continuing to postpone it because he didn't feel ready. If he was ready to have kids, he was ready to get married and commit. That's what his mother said, and his dad agreed. My ex started talking about how this wasn't fair because he was literally being coerced into marrying me, even though he was far from ready, just so that he wouldn't be cut out of their will. He told them they were being very unfair and started complaining about how nobody in his life ever seems to care about whether he's ready for milestones or not, and he always ends up having to deal with stuff he's not prepared for. I didn't care whether he was ready to be a father or not, and neither did his parents, who forced him to stay with me in spite of the fact that the idea of kids terrified him, and now they were even pressuring him into getting married. Although he still didn't feel ready. He complained about how unfair we were all being to him, and then I guess he stormed out and left his phone in the room. His parents kept talking after he left the room, mostly about how immature and reckless he was being. That's when I finally ended the call. I just sat there, stunned, completely frozen. I didn't know what to think, let alone what to do next. It hit me like a truck. He'd only agreed to marry me because his parents dangled the threat of cutting him out of their will. Not exactly the kind of thing you want to discover the night before your wedding. For a while, I couldn't even process it. It didn't make sense. There hadn't been a single red flag recently, not one thing that showed me he wasn't fully in. Sure, we had that rough patch when I first got pregnant, but after that, he'd been nothing but supportive, both as a partner and a dad. So hearing what I did, it blindsided me. Completely. I've got to give it to him, he had me fooled. If there were awards for acting like the perfect man, he would have walked away with gold. Eventually, I snapped out of the fog and made up my mind. I had to get out. Thankfully, the twins were with me that night, so I grabbed what I could, buckled them into the car, and drove to a hotel on the edge of town. By the time we got there, it was pretty late, and the boys were cranky, so I got them settled and back to sleep. Once they were down, I blocked my fiancé and his whole family, no message, no explanation. Just gone. Then I cried. Not the pretty kind of cry, either. The ugly, shaking kind, where your whole chest hurts. I cried because I realized the past year, the love, the promises, all of it was built on a lie. Eventually, around 4 a.m., I passed out. The wedding? His parents paid for the whole thing. Venue, catering, everything. But they were rich, so I wasn't worried about the cost. That was their choice. They wanted the big fancy wedding, not me. So I figured they could deal with the mess they created. I was done. Before I fell asleep that night, I sent out one group text to everyone close to me. I told them the wedding was off and that I'd explain later. No other details. I also made it clear, don't reach out to him or his family. Don't engage. Don't respond. Just let it be. And I trusted them, they had my back. So the day I was supposed to be getting married, I spent holed up in that hotel room. I snacked on junk food, played with my boys, and tried to act like everything was okay. They were the only ones I wanted near me. I was heartbroken, but I had to be strong for them. They needed their mom, and I wasn't going to fall apart in front of them. The next day, I decided to go back home and start packing up. I didn't want to stay in that house a second longer than I had to. Before that, I dropped the twins off at my parents' place. When I walked back into the house the following day, he was right there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He was nervous, fidgety, looked genuinely shaken up. Still, I couldn't tell how much of that was real and how much was just damage control. He immediately started talking, asked me where I'd gone, told me he'd been worried sick. And then, before I could even say a word, he launched into a guilt trip. Said he and his family waited for hours. Said what I did was wrong. That I humiliated them. That I owed everyone an explanation. Maybe even a public apology because cold feet wasn't a valid excuse to blow up the wedding. I stayed quiet at first. Then I looked him in the eye and told him I heard the whole conversation with his parents. That shut him up real quick. For a second, he looked confused. But then the realization hit him and I could see it in his face. Shame. Embarrassment. Guilt. Whatever it was, at least he didn't try to deny it. I didn't explain anything else. I didn't yell or cry or give him a speech. I just walked inside, grabbed the essentials, and walked right back out. He stood there in the yard the whole time, like he didn't know what to do or say. And honestly, I had nothing more to say to him. He made his choices, and now I was making mine. I wasn't interested in being a wife anymore. I just wanted to be a mother. A good one. That was almost a week ago. Since then, we haven't spoken. I thought that was it, that we were done. I was fine with that. But a few hours ago, he showed up at my parents' house, asking to talk to me. By now, I'd already told my family everything. Same with my closest friends. Nobody wanted to let him in. They were protective. But I said I'd speak to him just once. I didn't want to bring him inside, though. The twins had just fallen asleep, and I wasn't about to risk waking them up with a potential argument. So we talked outside, right there in the front yard. He apologized. Said he was sorry for putting me through all of it. Told me he does love me, he just doesn't feel ready for marriage yet. But he swore he loves our boys too, and that even after everything he said that night, he still wants to be in their lives. I didn't know what to say when he told me all that. Part of me wanted to believe him, but another part couldn't forget how he'd been lying to me for almost a year, pretending everything was fine. Of course I had doubts. Anyone would. Still, I told him I'd think about what to do next. He said he wasn't ready to give up. He wanted to try again, just the two of us, no pressure from his parents. He said he wanted a fresh start, without outside interference. But I honestly didn't have a clear answer for him. I mean, I do want my boys to have their dad in their lives. That matters to me. But trusting him again? That's a whole different story. After everything that happened, I felt like I needed a break from everything. That week had turned my whole world upside down. Yes, I've talked to a lawyer. I've decided to go for full custody of the kids because I'm officially not getting back with my ex. I know that might sound like a big step, but it's one I had to take. Some people have been messaging me, calling me selfish just for considering giving him another shot. And honestly, that felt so unfair. I'm a mom, yes, but I'm also a human being. It had only been a week since that phone call when I first posted. A week. After a 3-year relationship. Of course I hadn't moved on yet. Of course I was still emotional. I loved him. That's why I even considered it. But now, with a clearer head, I know what needs to be done. My kids and I come first. And I can't build a life with someone I can't trust. That part's over. The judgment I got online? Honestly, it stung. But I should have expected it. It's the internet. Anyway, I started looking for a lawyer just 2 days after I called the wedding off. It took me a little while to find someone I trusted, but I finally did. We never talked about custody before. Why would we? Back then, I thought we'd be together forever. But now I need to make sure everything's legal and in place. Not because I think he would try to take the boys from me, but because I don't trust his parents. They're very traditional and, honestly, a little controlling. I can easily imagine them pushing to get partial custody, just because they can't accept that their son isn't married and doesn't have primary custody of his kids. So yeah, I'm getting prepared. It's been about 3 days since I last heard from him. We haven't spoken since. And to me, that says it all. If he really meant what he said, if he actually wanted to work things out, he would have followed up. He would have checked in. But he didn't. So I know I'm doing the right thing. There's no trust between us anymore. I can't stay with someone who doesn't want to be with me, not really. This is the best choice for me. For all of us. I'm planning to tell him soon. I just hope he doesn't take it out on the custody situation. The last thing I need right now is another crisis. So, I finally told him. I let him know I wasn't interested in getting back together. I also told him, respectfully, that I planned to file for full custody, just so he wouldn't be blindsided. I honestly thought he'd be okay with it. After all, he'd admitted himself that he wasn't ready for marriage or fatherhood. I figured he might even be relieved that I wasn't dragging him into something he wasn't prepared for. But I was wrong. He flipped. Said I had every right to leave him, but I couldn't take his kids away from him. And I mean, maybe that would make sense if we'd had a solid, healthy relationship. But that's not what we had. Not even close. Let's not forget he never even wanted kids in the first place. Just a week ago, he was still saying he wasn't ready to be a dad. And now suddenly he's fighting for custody? Yeah, I couldn't help but feel like there was something else going on. Maybe his parents are still calling the shots behind the scenes. He was panicking, raising his voice, and we were at a restaurant, which made it even worse. People were starting to look. I was so embarrassed. I kept trying to get him to calm down, to lower his voice, but he was spiraling. Eventually, he quieted down a bit, and I tried to talk to him like two adults. Because honestly, I can't afford a messy, drawn-out legal battle. I don't have the money. I definitely don't have the emotional bandwidth. All I want is peace for my kids and some stability for myself. I knew damn well his parents had the kind of money that could buy them the best lawyers in town. So, even if I had the moral high ground, they could easily drag the whole thing out in court for months, maybe years. I figured my best shot was to try and talk sense into him, to keep things civil, and hope he wouldn't put up a fight. I reminded him how, up until just a week ago, he kept insisting he wasn't ready to be a father. I told him that what I was proposing made the most sense for everyone. I'd be the one raising the kids, which is what I wanted anyway. And he'd be free to live however he pleased, no marriage, no fatherhood, no pressure. That was the life he claimed he wanted, right? So to me, this solution felt fair. But then out of nowhere, he tells me he's had a change of heart, that he suddenly is ready to be a dad. I didn't buy it for a second. It felt off. A man who hadn't been ready for over a year doesn't just flip a switch in 1 week. So I pressed him, asked if there was something he wasn't telling me. And that's when he finally admitted it. He was doing all this because of what his parents said. Shocking, right? After I called off the wedding and told him I knew everything, he ran crying to his parents. Apparently, they told him he needed to make things right with me fast. That's why he showed up again a week later, trying to play the good guy. They accepted that the wedding was dead in the water, but they absolutely refused to let him lose custody of their grandchildren. And just like before, they threatened to cut him off financially if he didn't get me to agree to joint custody. By then, he was practically on his knees, begging me to go along with the joint custody plan. But I was so disgusted I just turned around and walked away. It was like déjà vu, him dancing to his parents' tune all over again. I had offered him the easy way out, no strings, no pressure to be a dad or a husband. But the only reason he was suddenly so invested now was because of money. He didn't care about me or the kids. All he cared about was making sure he stayed in his parents' good graces and their will. That was the final straw. I didn't want him anywhere near our children. They deserved better than a father who only showed up when money was on the line. I didn't even want child support. I didn't want anything from him. I just wanted him out of our lives completely. He had no backbone. He'd rather be his parents' puppet than stand on his own. And that kind of weakness? It's just plain pathetic. It's been a few days since all that went down, and I've blocked him again on everything. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to see him. I don't even want to hear his name. The last thing he messaged me was some ridiculous proposal. He suggested we go forward with joint custody, and get this, he said he'd split his inheritance with me once his parents passed away. I couldn't believe it. Was he seriously trying to bribe me with his future hand-me-downs just so he could keep his parents happy? It was laughable. Honestly, this is probably what I get for falling for a pampered little rich boy in the first place. I've worked my butt off to become the woman I am. Everything I have, I've earned. Yeah, my parents made sure I got an education, but we weren't rich. Far from it. I had to bust my tail to win scholarships just to get through college. Nothing came easy, and I never expected it to. But him? He's the only son of 2 ridiculously wealthy parents. And that about says it all. You all know the type of guy I'm talking about. I really believed he was different once we got together. He made it seem like he'd grown up, like he'd left all that entitled nonsense behind. And I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. For 3 whole years, I truly believed he had changed. But now, looking back, I can see I was just another one of his performances. The guy's a damn good actor, I'll give him that. But the mask finally slipped, and I saw him for who he really is, and I have zero interest in sticking around to discover anything else. I'm done. Raising these kids on my own? I'm okay with that. Actually, more than okay. I'd rather my boys grow up without a dad than have one who never truly wanted to be their father in the first place. That much I'm absolutely certain about now. I made the right call walking away. No regrets. I just hope at some point he wakes up and does the right thing by formally giving up his parental rights, instead of dragging this into some never-ending custody war. But until then, I'll keep hoping, and I'll keep praying. After a while, I finally have some good news. First off, the boys and I moved into a smaller place. It's nothing fancy, but it's ours, and that's what matters. Way better than the house I used to share with my ex, where every room had a memory I didn't want. This new place is close to my parents, too, which makes things a lot easier. They drop by now and then to help out with the kids, which I'm so grateful for. I also managed to hire a full-time nanny. I mean, I can't stop working, bills still need to be paid, right? So having that help has been a huge blessing. And yeah, I know how lucky I am to even afford that right now. My parents have been helping out with the finances, and honestly, I don't know what I'd do without them. None of us saw this situation coming, but they've stepped up in a big way. They're doing everything they can to support me, and I love them for it. Now, let's get to the part one know most of you have been waiting for, my ex. Well, he finally signed over his parental rights. I'm not exactly sure what shifted in him, but I think, just maybe, he finally found the guts to stand up to his parents. Or maybe they finally gave up trying to control everything. One of my friends mentioned he moved out of the house he was living in, so I'm leaning toward the first option. He actually reached out a few days ago, sent a long apology, and said he wanted to give me some money, sort of like a parting gift, or compensation, I guess. But I wasn't about to accept anything from him, not after everything. And yeah, I know some of y'all might think that was a dumb move, walking away from free money. But honestly, I don't care. When I said I didn't want anything to do with him anymore, I meant it. I forgave him, truly, but forgiveness doesn't mean I have to accept a handout. I just want to move forward. My parents and I are more than capable of giving these kids a happy, stable life without his involvement. So I sent him a message thanking him, but also asked him not to contact me anymore. And to his credit, he's respected that. Right now, my full focus is on my boys, being there for them, raising them right, giving them the love and security they deserve. I don't have the time or energy to waste being angry or sad about him anymore. All that matters now is being the best mom I can be. That's my only goal.